Before we get into the latest EP and then kind of the what you're working on now, I'd like to jump back to the beginning a little bit. And then, well, we talked about it before the camera was on, but you're from Detroit.
That's right.
And this is something, or at least the Michigan area, is something that appears in your music.
Yeah.
So how do you look back at growing up there and kind of?
Well, growing up was great. I loved Detroit growing up. It was only after I moved other places that I knew that Detroit was like the murder capital of America, and that it was kind of downtrodden. I didn't realize that. I had a very idyllic childhood, I'd say, and I still enjoy living there. It's you have to have a different attitude, I think. There's now people moving into Detroit that I think they don't realize the way the city works, and so they're always surprised. Like, okay, your car is going to be broken into, but that's okay. Don't worry about it.
You mentioned that you had a quite idyllic upbringing, and in Detroit, aside from some what you just mentioned, it is a very musical town. It's very. I mean, Aretha Franklin just passed away. But
yes. Yeah.
So growing up, where did you find kind of music? Was it a big part of your life early on?
In my family, no. My dad listened to classical music, whatever was the cheap cassette that he'd listen to. But going over to friends' houses in the summer, there's always music playing. Motown was such a part of Detroit they didn't even realize it. It's just you just assume that's what everybody listened to all the time, because there's always a Motown song in a commercial, or like you go to the dentist and but yeah, I mean, as I got older, when I was in high school, it was like the punk scene, and then later on like the electronic scene, and they all kind of intermingle in an interesting way in Detroit, which I like.
And you mentioned the punk scene. What did you, and kind of that more alternative side of music?
Sure.
What did you find in that type of music that you couldn't find in say, Motown or the classical music that your father played?
Well, it's just, it's being young and stupid, and you need young and stupid music. And in Detroit, growing up, there's a lot of kids that lived in the suburbs, and they weren't allowed to come into Detroit. And since I grew up in the city, you know everybody. Like, if you show up at a show, you know everybody there. And so it became like a scene where we're the people that are able to hang out in Detroit because we live there. So the basement shows, garage shows, shows at bars that you were too young to go into. We got to figure out a way to go to this show. So.
What did those shows, those years, taught you about music, about being a musician?
Well, in Detroit, it's a weird sort of thing where it's not professionalism. There's no like stars in Detroit. Like Aretha Franklin, you'd be eating at a restaurant and Aretha Franklin, different. People respect Aretha, but in Detroit there's not a lot of like heroes, or like everybody's equal in a sense. And so for the punk scene, it was like, okay, I'm here, I love this band that's playing this music, but I also know them, and I'm no better than, they're no better than me, and so I think that helps the scene a lot in Detroit. There's no stars. When we go back to Detroit, no one gives a shit that I'm in Protomartyr. No one cares, which is good.
Well, yeah, I wanted to ask you, so I assume you like that kind of?
Oh yeah, no, it's great. Like there's no, this guy's bigger than that guy. It's all equal. It's a working class town, which I think is important for good music and for like egalitarianism. I don't know.
Sure.
It's good.
What did writing do for you? Writing songs and putting thoughts to paper and kind of expressing them in this way?
Well, for me it was because I started being in a band when I was too old to be in a band. But it was a thing that was in me that was like, I liked writing, but I couldn't find an outlet for it. And then, okay, I can be in a band, and I can write, and I can also design the posters. Oh wow! It was it's a realistic way to be creative in Detroit, because also like everybody's doing it, so it's not it's an easy access to be creative, I guess.
And you touched upon something, Protomartyr. You kind of, it came together when you were quite
Yeah.
later in your
Old as shit. Very old.
So, what finally kind of pushed you over the edge? How come? And this, I'm sure you've been asked this before, but what kind of pushed you over the edge at that particular moment?
Well, it was a combination of two things, and one is kind of lighthearted, and one's a little heavier. But one was that I had a job that was like like what a teenager should have, and I was in my 30s, and I was like, I have the rock and roll job. I could easily be in a band. Like, why am I taking these bad jobs? Like, usually when people take bad jobs, it's because they want to have rest of their life. But I was just going to these bad jobs and going home and not doing anything. And the other thing was my dad died, and I was like, well, I realized how finite life is, and I was, for the first half of my life, I was kind of waiting around for something to happen. It was finally, oh, you have to actually make things happen. So,
Especially now, having released so many albums, and how do you look back at kind of the period before Protomartyr?
It was my 20s. I don't remember my 20s at all. I remember I went to the bar every night, and I would think of things like, oh, when I get older, I'm going to do this, or I see it as a time that's almost like trapped in amber, almost like it doesn't quite exist. But I'm glad that I did that, because I think it kind of inspired my writing, and I had 10 years to draw on, not doing anything, so I can relate to the sad loser.
That's an interesting point, because did you write, even when it wasn't for music, did you write thoughts down at that time?
Nah, not really. No. But I was one of those guys, and everybody knows them, where they sit around and they're like, oh, I'm a writer, but they don't write. Or I'm a singer, they don't sing. I'm a painter, they don't paint. There's tons of those people in the world. And so I was one of those guys for a long time, where I thought I was creative, but I wasn't doing anything with the energy. And so finding an outlet for it was good.
It's especially early on, and releasing music and being on stage. What did that do for you? Was it a confidence thing as well?
Oh no! Like I'm still very frightened to be on stage. I don't like being on stage. And
to this day?
Yeah, to this day. Like you can tell by how much I sweat. No, it's one of those things where I constantly realize, like, wait, Joe, you're a singer. I never sang, never did karaoke. Like, I'm not like a person that felt like they had to sing, but I felt like I had to do something. And,
Because this is always something I find very interesting, where people are shy, or they don't want to go on stage particularly, but then there's this driving force that still makes them to do it.
Yeah.
So for you, what is that? What is that? Is it that you want to tell a story?
I guess in my 20s I was living a life, and it was interesting enough, but I felt that, I guess I thought my voice, like I had something to say. I don't know if it's true. I kind of, I'm on the side where nobody has anything to say necessarily, but no, it was a way to fight boredom, or the feeling that existence is meaningless. So I was like, I need to find meaning in this. There's got to be some meaning. And
So in terms of the lyrics and the themes and all that, how do you write? Do you need to be in a certain mood? Do you need to be in a certain place?
Sometimes. What I'm doing now, like right now, we're not working on any new music because we're touring. So right now I'm just trying to take things in and hopefully remembering them, and then attaching them to some sort of feeling or meaning, And hopefully when we write, then I'll be able to spit this all out and apply it to the music. Yeah, it's like, sometimes it's a frustrating puzzle that you're trying to figure out, but the fact that I had the opportunity to do it, to me, is like the reward.
Well, because I was gonna ask, I can imagine that, especially considering kind of the things that you talk about, it can be quite confronting or dark at times. So
Yeah.
is it an enjoyable process, so to say, for you?
Yeah, I mean, it's. I think if it hurt me, I wouldn't do it because I'm a coward. So I must take some enjoyment out of it. I think it's just a way to kind of figure out my own life and how I see the world. And sometimes I'm surprised. I'm like, oh boy, that's a dark thought, or that's a funny thought. Like, it's a weird way to separate your emotions from yourself, and then you can go through your day-to-day life fine, knowing that you can pour it into the music. Yeah.
And then, in that sense, in terms of the sonic quality of the music, does that drive kind of what you write, or is it the other way around?
Oh no, it's completely like. That's why the band is important, because like that's why I don't write lyrics ahead of time, because I need to hear what they're creating. And it's sort of like, I don't want to be too cheesy about it, but it really is kind of like a psychic link. Like, not what I'm saying it matches up to the sound that Greg's making on guitar, but I respond to what the music makes me feel. I mean, that's kind of the most important thing. The lyrics are really secondary to the, responding to the music.
I can imagine then with, and let's go to Constellation, the latest EP. I can imagine that, especially for the band and you guys yourself, that these interpretations of the feelings you get from the songs change over time.
Oh yeah.
So do you have, if we take, let's say, Wheel of Fortune,
Yeah.
Is the way you feel about the sounds and then the song, is that now different than when it first was presented to you?
Oh yes, like, because one of the interesting things about singing a song again and again is, number one, you realize pretty early on, like, I'm stupid for singing this song this way, and like I'm stuck singing it this way, and it changes from day to day, like where you're like, oh, I gotta rattle off all these things. That now it's kind of nice to go back to old songs. You're like, oh yeah, this reminds me of the way I felt. But doing it live like completely changes the song in your mind. You're like, all right, why did I do this?
Right.
Yeah. Why did I yell so much?
But is it very much? Is it a long process to get to that initial version of a song, or is it kind of almost like stream of consciousness? Very, very.
It is what it is it's stream of consciousness, and then it's putting that down and then editing it. And the band edits the music too. And I'd like to think that I'm just a font of great ideas, but I'm not. And so what you do is you have your first kind of psychic dance where you just put everything out there, and then you go back and say, okay, this doesn't work, cross that out, add that. You kind of clean it up, which I think is the point of art. Art isn't just your thoughts. You have to kind of whittle your thoughts down into some sort of shape. So.
And I suppose part of it is also to have people connect to it.
Yeah, I mean, connecting is great, but I think that's almost like an afterthought. I think you should maybe not worry about that, and if it means something to you, that's really all that matters. And that's why the celebrity or the extra thing that's involved with creating, that's secondary.
These kind of interviews.
Yeah.
Fair enough. No, but I get it. I mean,
you can, like, I don't want to. You can have that be your primary thing. It's
right.
We started. Because I'm so old. The fact that people share their emotions online so much, or like who they are, or they have to constantly update their fans about what they're doing. Like, here we are eating our meal. Like to me, that's like I don't want to do. I want people to come to us because they like the music, not because they like me or what I think about necessarily. You know, I don't have my opinions are no better or worse than the guy standing next to you. Really.
In that sense, then, what is one of the things that you remember that that people have said about your music, or maybe somebody coming up to you saying, hey, "This is what your music has done for me"?
Well, if they're a good Protomartyr fan, they just kind of give you a nod, and you kind of give them a nod back, because that's the kind of guy I am. But no, it's usually been very good. Like and sometimes people will have an interpretation of a song that's better than what I thought the song was about. And I'm like, oh, I'm gonna steal that, you know. There was like some interview I did, and someone was like, oh, the woman on the cover of your record looks like the Sphinx, and it's good because all your lyrics about like these riddles and like, you know. I was like, yeah, I'm gonna steal that.
From now on.
That's exactly what I thought, you know, and I didn't think about that at all. And that's kind of, you know, the fun of it. Is I'm trying to figure out what I mean half the time.
Final question then. I think the last record, although you've released EPs and I think a split album as well, the last record has been released a year ago. Are you already thinking about or writing a new record?
Yeah, I mean, you always kind of take a temperature of the band. Like, do you want to keep doing this? This is this ridiculous thing that we're doing. Because as soon as like this tour stops, like I'm going to be pulling my hair out, hoping that I can create again. And so it sounds like as soon as this is done, we're going to go back and try to do it again. And so I'm looking forward to it.
All right. I wish you the best of luck.
Thank you.
Joe, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.